New Mexico is such a wonderful combination of people from different experiences, different backgrounds. It would not be as wonderful of a place without all of the different components, including the influence of the people who started this medical school, the people who are able to look beyond the academic achievements that historically are set as benchmarks and look at the greater good. We're all part of the same community.
50 years ago, a pioneering group of medical educators, recruited from across the United States, undertook an audacious experiment. They came together to create a medical school in a state beset by endemic poverty and daunting geographic barriers. Their compact with the state was to provide a greater opportunity for New Mexicans to have a medical education, and at the same time, to help alleviate the severe shortage of medical care in much of the state. In 1957, UNM President Thomas Popejoy began actions towards starting a new medical school at the university. Popejoy lobbied the New Mexico State Legislature for funds, proposing that the Bernalillo County Indian Hospital could be the primary teaching hospital. He enlisted the aid of State Senator Fabian Chavez, whose support was instrumental in mobilizing other votes in the legislature. In 1961, the School of Medicine at the University of New Mexico was born. Popejoy enlisted a young, adventurous associate dean from the University of Colorado to run the new medical school.
The fact is that a medical school is the only professional school which, as part of its educational program, has to practice the profession which it is professing.
Reginald Fitz III, who was the founding dean of the UNM School of Medicine, is really the School of Medicine's tie with the founding fathers of American medicine.
Back in the early 60s when this school was starting, and when the first class came in 1964, I think there was only one member of the faculty who was over 40. And my idea was that there was an opportunity to have a very vibrant, interesting kind of a school which cut across a lot of traditional lines and produced a lot of interdisciplinary kind of activities that were hard to get going in a place where the vested interest had already been pretty well established.
It took this group of courageous pioneers to move to New Mexico and ask questions that weren't traditional questions around the way that you teach the curriculum and creating a learning environment for medical students.
I suspect that most of us, perhaps all of us who came here in that original group, came with the intention of doing something different.
You know, we all came into this school with the understanding it was a 2-year program. And every one of us had letters of acceptance elsewhere. And then about halfway through our sophomore year, maybe a little later, it was pretty apparent that the legislature was probably going to approve this for a 4-year program. And towards the end of that year, the medical school administration gave us all the choice of going to our 3rd and 4th year programs as we had planned to, or stay here and finish our 3rd and 4th year. And to the man and woman, everybody stayed. The school was kind of on the leading edge, and we sort of sensed that.
I solemnly pledge to consecrate my life to the service of humanity. I will hold in confidence all that a patient confides in me. I will maintain.
There are so many colorful stories of Dr. Leonard Napolitano. You know, he was really a man of science. He was an electron microscope researcher, but he was not above going up to the state legislature and personally lobbying these legislators.
Dad was Dad, and he didn't have a huge ego. He was very honest too, and had a lot of integrity. And I think when you're dealing with bodies like a legislature, they're naturally suspicious of people from higher education. And Dad wasn't like that at all. I mean, he would hang around the rail and smoke with them. A medical school dean who smoked. I mean, really?
No, he was tough, and he was the quarterback. He kept things very close to his chest, but he also called the plays.
They continue to receive education in hospitals throughout the state.
Over the 22 years that he was the dean of the School of Medicine and then later vice president of the Health Sciences Center, I think we could say that the infrastructure for the healthcare infrastructure for New Mexico was developed during that time.
It was really the work of his lifetime, and it's such a valuable legacy to leave a public medical school designed to produce graduates for New Mexico, which needs it so badly.
Throughout the 70s and 80s, the School of Medicine and the UNM Medical Center began a period of expansive growth, with Napolitano at the helm. Research projects, which bring both talent and funds to the state, expanded.
Established in 1975, the UNM Cancer Center serves all of New Mexico and graduates 2/3 of the state's cancer doctors. Dr. Tom Tomasi is its director, and he's been on the job 2 years now.
Here at this cancer center, we have to have both basic programs, and then we have to make the bridge between the laboratory and the clinic.
Through our work of providing cancer diagnostic tests, what we call special diagnostic tests.
In 1999, Cheryl Woolman became the director of the UNM Cancer Center, and in 2003, a new state-of-the-art clinical research and treatment center opened. This center is a flagship of pride for both the university and the state, as it brings the world's best cancer treatments to New Mexicans. Also during this time, the General Clinical Research Center, which would develop the first implantable insulin pump, was established at UNM Hospital.
The National Laboratory at Sandia.
And in the Department of Family, Community, and Emergency Medicine, Project Porvenir was going strong. This program would later inform one of the biggest innovations in medical education that was developed at the UNM School of Medicine: problem-based learning and the primary care curriculum.
Dr. Arthur Kaufman helped create this new curriculum at the University of New Mexico. Of course, the question is, 10 years, 20 years down the road, will your students be any more compassionate?
I think we can't know for certain. All we can say is if we pay attention to those matters in medical school, perhaps there'll be a better product in the future.
I knew I wanted to go into a helping profession, but I didn't know exactly what being a doctor was.
I was fairly concerned about whether I could thrive in such an environment. I came from a very small community, very rural, and I think that's one of the things that I learned in this program, in a PCC program, was you have to test your limits. You need to push the envelope a little bit. You have to move outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, because you had to take a chance. I mean, here you had a program that was totally untested. And they had the trust that we knew what we were talking about. Of course, we didn't. And I think because it was a small program, so everyone knew each other, you're very dependent on each other.
The legislature was concerned about not enough physicians being turned out for the underserved areas in the state. So we had both the state legislature, and this being the size of state that it is, and we were probably 49th in the country as far as number of primary care docs per capita. So that those were things that worked in our favor when we were bringing an idea to the faculty. But it also gave Napolitano, he could say, see what we're doing. You know, they're now first-year students as well as fourth-year students out in the community.
That was a huge motivation for him. Then some of the bigger grants that came out, especially from Robert Wood Johnson, for the next set of innovations, you couldn't have a track. Everyone had to do it. So that was the reason we merged the tracks. By that time, most of us felt, thank goodness, we didn't have to run parallel activities. Let's take the best of both. A problem was that we had stayed separate so long, and this is like 12, 15 years, that people sometimes became hardened in their positions, one or the other. And some people couldn't adapt to that change. If an innovation is to be sustained, the greater institution has to see it compromise.
1981 was a landmark year for emergency services at UNM. In April, Governor Bruce King designated UNM Hospital as a Level 1 regional trauma center. The Lifeguard helicopter service began transporting patients from throughout the state. In 1982, Paul Roth became the chief of the Division of Emergency Medicine. It was at that same time that President Ronald Reagan was creating the National Disaster Medical System. As part of this new system, Roth and the School of Medicine created New Mexico's Civilian Disaster Medical Assistance Team, the nation's first DMAT. The group would go on to assist and lead rescue and recovery efforts in hurricanes, terrorist attacks, and wildfires. In 1994, Napolitano passed the torch to Roth, and he became the fourth dean of the UNM School of Medicine.
Many of us have this deep-seated sense of purpose and service in our minds as we do whatever it is we do in this institution, whether it's in the emergency department taking care of a motor vehicle accident and patients, whether it's in the child psychiatric hospital, or a pharmacist trying to educate a diabetic, or a nurse at a bedside comforting a patient. Those are the values that we all have in common, and we measure our own success as a person, as an individual and a professional, on how well we do that.
As the school moves forward under Roth's direction, education, clinical practice, and research all work together to foster innovation, while always keeping in mind this idea of service, as well as the Health Sciences Center original mission, to care for New Mexico.
It's a place that really believes in innovation, and so many innovations have come out of this place.
From working on diabetes management with the Zuni people, to continuing the relationship with the national laboratories that began in the 70s, to Project ECHO, which works to bring the specialized medical knowledge of the academic health center to the satellite practicing doctor, the School of Medicine and the great minds who comprise it work tirelessly to create better health for those in their care.
The one thing we try to always keep in perspective about our research enterprise is that research brings hope.
Academic medicine at UNM means something different than a lot of other schools that I've interacted with in the past. It goes beyond the walls of the hospital and beyond the walls of the school and extends out into the smaller communities around the state of New Mexico, especially for other students who come from New Mexico and are interested in serving their state.
What we tend to focus more on is trying to answer that question of what is the role of the University of New Mexico and what is the role of the School of Medicine, the only School of Medicine in the state of New Mexico. What about our impact to the people that pay taxes and actually financially and morally support the School of Medicine, and what about this social contract that we have? And I think that differentiates us from many other institutions of higher education as well as other medical schools.
I think we have learned an important lesson, and that lesson is that we're constantly in evolution. And every group, every new group is a special new group.
One of the ways that our school is now known, it's that it has kept its faith with social mission. And that is critical because schools have so drifted away from what their real purpose is in helping the health of their communities.
In the general scheme of things, 50 years is really not a long time. We had our original cadre of faculty and students and staff. We had the second generation that picked up the torch and carried it on and modified it in a substantial way. And many of us are still here, both influencing and being influenced by the third generation of faculty and students and the world. And I think in each of those eras, each generation really sought meaning and purpose, a sense of making a difference in other people's lives as being as important, if not many times more important, than their own career.